Hello everyone and welcome to Football Shock, Football Agenda, episode 5. It's actually take 2. James gave me the responsibility of recording it yesterday.
Lies.
We should have known better because I did not click the microphone button and we had no audio. So this is take 2, boys. Introduce yourselves. I'm Colt, the Leeds fan.
James, the United fan.
It's the one and only, you can't clone me, alive, breathing and kicking in the flesh. Shay, the Arsenal fan.
And we've got a couple of absentees this week, some part-timers, can't do their jobs. So we have got a guest this week. Let them know who you are.
Yeah, so massive fan of the show. Thanks for having me on. My name's Chris, and unfortunately for Colt Kelly, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, another clown I've got to deal with. I'm telling this Football Shock is a circus full of clowns. I'm telling you, they're everywhere. We're going to jump right into last week's England games. The first one was really the big one. It was England-Belgium, quite a disappointing game, I thought. We all said we didn't have high hopes for the game. I think most of us went for a draw. Really, it was a poor performance, I think, from both teams. Just my quick analysis was that Belgium got quite a fortunate first goal. Keynes had one cleared off the line, which for me just kind of changed the course of the game. Belgium have then gone up the other end and got a free kick, which was never a free kick. It was a great actual goal, a great free kick, but it was never a foul. But like I've said before, England don't get decisions at international level. They just don't. So at this point, I can't even be angry because I'm just used to it. It's pathetic. But yeah, quite a poor game. James, what did you think?
Yeah, like similar sort of feeling, really. I thought that we were kind of maybe in the game early doors, a bit 50-50 going back and forth. But as soon as Belgium got the first goal, to be honest, I kind of felt after that they were in control of the game for the most part. It's second half, we can rave about how we sort of dictated the tempo of the game and moved the ball around nicely, kept possession, but we never really troubled Courtois at all or their back line. So beyond that, there's not really much to shout about, and I question how much of that was just Belgium saying, look, we're 2-0 up, you can come and attack us all day because you're not troubling us. The first goal I think took a deflection, but it was still a good shot. I don't really have too many qualms with that. It was the second one. I personally, like I said, I don't think that was a free kick, but I mentioned it yesterday as well. I spoke to my dad about the game, and his opinion was that he thought it was a clear foul. So I don't know if it's his old age and maybe he didn't have his glasses in, and that's why we're disagreeing on the opinion. But I suppose that shows, the decision maybe could have been 50-50, and maybe I'm looking at it with a bit of rose-tinted glasses. But ultimately, England weren't good enough, and Belgium, I think, probably deserved winners in the game.
I think, Belgium were quite comfortable in the second half. I know, Chris, you had some thoughts about Southgate just hasn't had the option to pick his first attacking options.
Yeah, so I think I alluded to it yesterday, but obviously I'll say it again. In 2020, he's not been able to call upon the quartet of Harry Kane, Rashford, Sancho and Sterling. Within the 7 games that we've had this year, at least one of them has been injured. So I think that's going to have an effect, because I do think with Kane, Rashford, Sancho and Sterling, they're able to penetrate, they offer pace, they offer something different. I know you're not a big fan of his at the minute, Kieran, but Jack Grealish, I don't really see him on the left either. He's not got the same weapons that Sancho and Sterling have on that wing, even Rashford if he's deployed out there. It's difficult for him, and I think playing against Belgium, we're going to set up more defensively, which we did. We played with a back 5. I don't see that formation working going forward, especially in the Euros against the bigger teams such as Belgium, France, Spain, the Netherlands. I think we're going to get caught, and it's going to be difficult if we want to secure that trophy. So I think Southgate needs to reassess his position in regards to what formation he's going to play, because he keeps chopping and changing, and it's not good enough.
No, like I said before, I think Southgate, he's using this formation because I think defensively they're not good enough to beat the big teams. And I think that formation against big teams would be the one we'd actually go for, because we need to, if we play someone like France, who've got a lot of attacking talent going forward, we need to be tighter at the back. But I disagree with him playing it against teams like Iceland and Ireland and Wales and all these other teams. It should be 4-3-3 against those teams. We don't need that many defensive players. I definitely think Southgate needs to adapt more in terms of who we're playing against. But in terms of Grealish, I think the whole reaction to his performance against Belgium just reminds me how much of a fucking joke the media in this country is. Yes, he played okay. I thought he had a decent game. But they're comparing him to Gaza and saying how fantastic he was and how he's a breath of fresh air and all this rubbish. We lost 2-0. He didn't score. He didn't assist. He didn't have a goal. He didn't have a shot on target. Fuck off. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous overhyping of a player. after a game where he was, I'd give him a 6 or 7 out of 10. He was okay, but not that great.
But wouldn't you say, Cole, that in every single England game that Grealish has played in so far, he's probably been the best performer?
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but the rest of the team.
I'm not comparing him to Gaza. I'm not comparing him to Gaza. Don't get me wrong. I do think that's overhyping and a bit out of the question. I think you're selling the guy short. Personally, I think he's easily been one of the best players in the Premier League for a year and a bit now, and I think he's showing in an England shirt that he's actually one of England's best players as well, and deserves to be in that shout for a starting spot.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think Grealish it should be a starter for England. I think he's a quality player. He destroyed Arsenal the other week. He's been consistently good in the Premier League for over a year now. But I just didn't agree with the overhyping of him after the Belgian game. All the headlines after the game were about how well Grealish played, and it was kind of like, well, hang on, boys, what was the score? We lost 2-0. I'm sorry, but I mean, you know how competitive I am. Ultimately, we fucking lost. So to go around lauding a player after a loss, it just doesn't sit right with me. Shay, what do you think?
I'm a huge Jack Grealish fan. I'm a huge fan of Jack Grealish. Big fan of the guy. I would love him at Arsenal, if I'm honest with you. If the England first 11 was picked right now, Jack Grealish should be one of the first names on that team sheet. He has to start based on current form in the Euros. He's a good player. Yes, he lost against Belgium, but sometimes in a loss, some players stand out. And Grealish stood out. For me, he's a solid player. If there was a starting 11 right now, Jack Grealish would be in the starting 11 for the Euros. I'm a huge fan of him.
I do actually agree. I think on current form he would be. The other thing I'd say is I think Sancho, Sterling on the wings provide more pace in him. I think that's key for England. But on current form, Sancho hasn't been great. So I would have Grealish in there. But I do think Sancho is the better player. But I mean, on current form, you can't argue Grealish should be in there. But yeah, disappointing game. I think we'll all agree. We're just going to quickly cover the Iceland game last night. I don't think there's a great deal we can all add to that. It was a dead rubber. England slapped them 4-0. That's pretty much par for the course. The only really noted moment I'd want to say is Phil Foden. Two goals after he smashed Iceland twice. Once with the Birds over in Iceland and once at Wembley against Leeds. Yeah, that was the only really highlight. Chris, what did you think of Foden's performance last night?
Yeah, I mean, Phil Foden, he's finally getting that chance with Man City since David Silva's departure to the Real Sociedad. I think he's a more established player in that team now, and I think Pep Guardiola's finally given him some trust in the team. Played well last night. I don't recall him starting. I think he came off the bench, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So he came off the bench, got 2 goals. Like we all said, it was a routine victory. It was a dead rubber. There was nothing to play for. These aren't going to be the games that England are judged on. We've got bigger fish to fry. We're going to have friendlies potentially in March, and then we've got the Euros next summer. So, yeah, easy performance. Just hopefully all the players come back fit for the return of the Premier League at the weekend. Definitely.
James, Shay, have you got anything to add to that game last night? I know it was a bit of a difficult thing to analyse because, like I said, it was dead rubber, but any thoughts?
Nah, not really. I didn't expect us to beat Iceland. No disrespect to Iceland, but I didn't expect them to cause us any real issues. And, yeah, we shall move on to 2021 now. Big year for England. Big year for Southgate. And yeah, all I want him to do is just figure out who's his best 11. I think there's many slots still available in that starting 11. The only players that I can see right now who are guaranteed to start is Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, and Harry Maguire. Every other spot is up for grabs, even the keepers.
I would actually agree with that. James, anything to add to that game?
I mean, I think I predicted 4-0 last week.
Yeah,
memory serves me correct. Yeah, so pretty much as I expected. I just couldn't see how Iceland were going to trouble us. With the amount of players, I think that, like I said, we've kind of got to pick from now. They're all having a bit of form, like even players like Calvert-Lewin coming into the team, even Tammy Abraham's getting, goals here and there at Chelsea at the moment. Foden, you've got coming in. I just think we got a good pool of talent to pick from, and it was a routine win. But saying that, I'm still happy to see, even though we do expect these wins and they're routine, we're beating those teams like that more often than not, I feel, with a good scoreline. In the past, let's say when we were under Hodgson, or who else I can think of off the top of my head, maybe that's Sven-Göran Eriksson or someone like that, we were only probably beating an Iceland like 2-1, and it was a struggle. Do you know what I mean? Or Slovenia 2-1 or 3-1, and it always felt tough. Whereas I feel, at least with the Euro qualifying campaign and with a few games obviously since then, we tend to be beating these teams 4-0, 5-0, at least like 5-1 or something like that. So at least we're comfortably beating the teams that we should be now. It's just taking that next step up with the quality that I believe we have, and the depth we now have. I think we should be now challenging for the big titles at the big tournaments. But saying that, I do think that's probably one of the most unlucky sort of generations at the moment, in that I think all the big nations have a team again. I think Portugal do, France definitely do, Spain look like they've got one again, Germany look like they do, Holland are back. When you put that all into consideration, it's in the past you might have said, Spain and Germany were the clear front runners. Now I kind of think there's at least 6 or 7 names in there that all could beat each other.
Yeah, it is tough. And I mean, next year's a massive year for England. You know how I feel about England. I would love to see them win something. I just still don't think we're defensively good enough. I think teams like you mentioned there will open us up. And because obviously the Euros, a lot of our games will be at Wembley. But if no fans are still allowed, which I mean, I think is still up in the air, if I'm honest, I think that really negates that. So it's going to be an interesting year next year for England, but we need to dive into our main topic this week. Topic suggested by James around players. Is it right for a player to stay for loyalty, or should they move on and challenge for big trophies? And the recent case of that is Aubameyang. Now, this is with 2 Arsenal fans on the show. This is a topic that they're going to have strong views on. I'm just going to set out my stall first. Aubameyang bitched out. He pussied out, in my opinion, because the last couple of seasons he's been in red hot form. The form he's in and the age is in. This is his last big contract. This is his last chance to go to a top club who are competing for their league and for the Champions League. At Arsenal, he signed a 3-year deal at the age of 31. They're not even in the Champions League at the minute, but even if they do get back into it, I still think they're far off competing for it. And I think he'll look back on that and think it's a mistake. I'm going to let Shay try and defend that because I know he's desperate to.
At the end of the day, he signed whether you like it or not. You didn't want him to re-sign because you don't like Arsenal. So your opinion is basically a biased standpoint as far as I'm concerned. But forget that. I think the fact that he stayed is basically the fact that he wants to become a club legend and cement his status. He wants to be the main guy. If he really wanted to have no ambition, he would go to Barcelona, to Bayern Munich, to Real Madrid, probably sit on the bench and win everything. He wants to feel like he's achieved something, yeah? Single-handedly won us the FA Cup, two cup final winning goals, 2 goals in the semi-final. He wants to continue to make history at Arsenal and be the main man. So fair play to him, the fact that he's chosen to stay with Arteta, because Mikel Arteta obviously convinced him about the plans for the club. He's chosen to stay with Arteta and be the main man to lead Arsenal forward. So full credit to him, 100%. Also, as we talk about ambition, Harry Kane, Alan Shearer, all these goals, nothing to show for it. Well, Kane, definitely, nothing to show for it. Alan Shearer, 1 Premier League title for 250 goals. I mean, come on. Look at ambition. What about those players?
Shay, I think I've got 2 points there just to make about what you just said. The first one regarding Aubameyang, about if he went Barca, all they do is sit on the bench. Does that mean you're admitting he's not as good as you say he is? Is he not good enough to get into Barca's team or Real Madrid's team or Bayern's team? Is he not good enough for that?
You and I both know that teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid dispose of good players like their wash. For example, like they're like laundry. Just dispose of it. I'm not saying he's not good enough to start, but I'm saying he won't. The chances are he's not going to be the main man. He wants to be the main man. He's ambitious. He wants to be the main focal point of attack. He wants to be up and in the smoke. He don't want to be on the sideline hiding. He wants to be playing. So fair play to him.
Ambitious
play to him. Respect him for that.
Ambitious players win more than FA Cups, mate. But also your second point about Shearer and Kane, it's completely different scenarios. Shearer went back to his hometown club that he grew up supporting. He said,
what did he win there?
He said it didn't matter. He said, if I win 1 trophy with Newcastle, it's worth 10 at Man United. He played for his hometown club that he supported as a boy. Kane is same. Kane is a North London boy. He's a Spurs fan. And that's loyalty towards your club. He's a one-club man. Aubameyang isn't a one-club man. He didn't grow up in North London. He wasn't an Arsenal fan growing up. He's gone there at 29 years old. There's a massive, massive difference between that situation and Shearer and Kane's. Shay, I know you've got something to say. I'm just going to do Chris quickly.
First of all, I just want to read you out a quote, Colt Kelly, about Aubameyang when he signed for Arsenal, okay? When he re-signed his contract recently. So he said, Arsenal were a side which I needed to sign for. Signing for this special club was never in doubt. It's thanks to our fans, my teammates, my family, and everybody at the club that I feel I belong here. Okay, his Premier League record speaks for itself. He scored 56 goals in 93 appearances. He is a world-class striker. Okay, and we've discussed about who we would have gone for potentially. Realistically, no one came in for him. Let's just put it out there. No one come in for him. And I think even if someone did come in for him, I don't think he would have left. Okay. I think he wants to win trophies with Arsenal, which he single-handedly did last season. Okay. He won the FA Cup for us by scoring a double against City in the semi-final and a double against Chelsea in the final. Okay. I think he wants to cement his legacy such as Thierry Henry did. Okay. And I know Thierry Henry eventually left and he won the Champions League with Barcelona. However, I think potentially in the next few years, the way everything's going and the landscape of the Premier League, Arsenal will be close to winning a big trophy. Okay, that's a massive statement, but we a big trophy. Jay will agree with me. Jay will agree with me.
Laugh, mate. You've been saying this for 15 years and it's ain't happened. If he's a world-class striker, why didn't he go to a world-class team? That's all I need to say to that. Shay, sorry,
who would have gone for him? Sorry, who would have got? Who wanted to sign him?
No one
came in for him.
I think if no one's going for him, it tells you he's not as good as you're making him out to be.
But is he world class? Can I just ask that question? Is he world class?
Listen. I've never disputed Aubameyang is a top class striker. I had questioned his ambition for not going to a Barca or Madrid. I think to me it smacks of a lack of character. But you know my opinion on it. I think he will live to regret this decision. But that's just my opinion.
All right. Well. My question ultimately was all about like the legacy of a player compared to obviously their personal ambition, and it just gave me a thought about players like I mentioned before, like yesterday, but Gerrard, Paul Scholes, Giggs. Paul Scholes and Giggs, for instance, they won it all at United and were one club men, will always go down in history, absolutely loved. Gerrard didn't win much at Liverpool, but to his credit, almost I'd say pulled them into that Champions League 2005 win, and he's a club legend and a phenomenal player. I'll never doubt that. But as we're saying, they're all sort of homegrown players, and are we saying that that's the only reason that they can be a club legend? Because I agree, if Aubameyang thinks that staying at Arsenal he can be, maybe it is the right decision for him. My worry is for him, he might end up staying there. But if Arsenal don't win anything in that time, bar this FA Cup that they've won, yes, he might end up with a lot of goals. But will he ever be regarded in that same sort of tier, for instance, as Thierry Henry was? Because I understand like Thierry Henry went to Barcelona, like we said, and ended up winning the Champions League. But he kind of won everything he needed to at Arsenal at that point. Like, he had the chance to win the Champions League with Arsenal as well in the, 2004 final?
2006. Great day that was.
Yeah. So do you know what I mean? He definitely, it's just compare. I just don't know if he'll win anything in these 3 years when he could have gone to a team and been challenging for the big honours. But then, a bit like Chris and Shay have sort of said, who went in for him? I don't know. I don't remember hearing any stories of anyone going in for him. But we all class him as a world-class striker. So was his mind already made up beforehand that he was always going to stay at Arsenal? And if that's the case, then I don't know, I'm maybe even a bit more sort of worried about it, because like we're saying, or like I mentioned again yesterday, as soon as he signed the contract, the goals seem to have dried up a bit. And I don't know if that is, like I said, a correlation, but I have heard, you have seen it happen in the past. Players get these bigger contracts, become the man, so to speak, and then it kind of dries up a bit for them. But I know what Shay's probably going to say about the service that he's getting. The creativity isn't there. But he was scoring all these goals before lockdown with the same team pretty much. So what's the difference? What's changed?
It's a very valid point. It's a very worrying point for Arsenal fans because, Arsenal haven't scored from open play in a few games now. And Aubameyang's goal form has contributed to that because they're relying on him a lot. Shay, what's the point you want to make?
Just three quick points. First of all, are you saying that it's okay for a player to win nothing as long as it's part of his hometown team? Is that what you're saying? Because don't sit here and bang on about ambition and then turn around and say, players that play for the hometown team, it's okay. It's the hometown team. They can win nothing. You can't have it both ways. If you're talking about ambition, talk about ambition. Harry Kane, Alan Shearer, lots of goals, nothing to show for it. Second thing, You mentioned about Thierry Henry's legacy and also Aubameyang's legacy. Yes, Henry is Henry. He's the king. But part of Aubameyang's legacy, Aubameyang's goal to game ratio is an absolute joke. He had the fastest 50 goal haul in Arsenal's history. Like it was like a 50 in like what 70 games, something ridiculous. Aubameyang is single-handedly scoring goals in a poorer team. And third of all, yes, the service has dried up. A striker is partly only as good as the service that he gets. It's simple economics.
But
No
why is it any
lack of
different?
service, lack of
What's
goals.
changed? What's changed?
Exactly.
What's changed? I'll let Chris respond to that.
Well, hang on, Chris. Just before you say, I just want to say about what Shay. I want to ask a question to Shay. There's a wrestler called Mick Foley, and obviously some of you will know him, some of you won't. He said once, "Do you want to be a statistic or do you want to be a legend?" And that I think is relevant here because what you said there about Aubameyang is the fastest to 50 goals. It's a great statistic. In 10 years, no one's gonna give a fuck about it. No one cares. However, if he went somewhere and won the Champions League, in 10 years, people would talk about that. And that's the point I think me and James are making. You can have all these statistics. Henry is not loved for getting goals to game ratio. Henry is loved at Arsenal for the league titles he won. Arsenal fans still now sing about winning the title at Old Trafford and White Hart Lane and all these other places. They don't care about his goal to game ratio. And that's the point me and James are making. In 3 years, when all's said and done and Aubameyang's wind down his career, he's going to regret not making that move. Chris, what was the point you were going to make?
Look, I agree. Look, since he signed his new contract, I do think there's been a direct correlation. I don't know what it is. I can't really explain it, but the goals have dried up. I think he scored 3 goals at all this season. He scored 1 on the opening day against Fulham. I think he scored in the Europa League, and he scored against Man United, which was a penalty. So from open play, he's not scoring as he should be. Without Aubameyang's goals, Arsenal are nowhere near as prolific as they need to be competing at the top of the end of the table. And I'm not going to say that we are close to that. We know we're not, but we've made a difference to our team this year where since Partey's come in, he's brought El Neni back from his loan at Besiktas. We're more defensively solid, but you're right. And I think we've had this conversation before, Kieran. We are toothless going forward at the minute. However, I do think, look, Henry, yeah, he's the king at Arsenal. He's the highest goal scorer in our history. Aubameyang, I'm not going to say is going to ever eclipse him, but for the next 3 years, look, Aubameyang's won the Golden Boot. He was tied with Salah and Mane. He came second last year, was just 1 behind Vardy. So we know he can do it. Like I said, it's difficult at the minute, but I've no doubt that he'll probably will be close to top goal scorer again this season. It's
an interesting point. I mean, again, we like to talk on this show, but we'll see at the end of the season. The proof will be in how many goals he scores at the end of the season. And right now, Shea spent 6 months ruining Patrick Bamford. Bamford scored way more than him. So the facts are in the numbers. We'll see. I think, Chris, you're probably going to be right. I do think Aubameyang will end up towards the top of the goal charts. James, what do you think about that?
I think he'll end up towards the top of the goal charts again because I don't think you can keep a good striker down. He'll find the goals in the back of the net again. But what I'm just curious about actually with this is he signed obviously the 3-year extension. But what if you don't get into the Champions League again for another year? What happens then? Do you then see his decision as possibly a poor one? I don't know. If you look at it, I know it's hard to say obviously because you are Arsenal fans. But if you were to take that sort of emotion out of it, do you think then if he wanted to win trophies, that he should have got the big trophies? Do you think he should have gone?
So it's an interesting point for both of you, to be honest. I mean, I know it's difficult as fans of a team. I know what it means, but take off your Arsenal hat for a second. Imagine you're not an Arsenal fan. Arsenal to you are a football club. You're playing at, you're enjoying it, but you're not married to them like you are. Would you have signed that contract?
I can't say that because I'm not in that position. I'm not in this position, so I can't say that. Basically, I can't say that because I don't know what was in his head.
If it was you, go on.
I would have re-signed. Yes, I would.
Yeah, lying piece of shit. Lies. Chris, what would you do?
Look, it was never in doubt. If that was me and I was in my position, I'd re-sign as well. We're both biased, unfortunately. We're not going to say we wouldn't have signed the contract. Look, let's be neutral at the minute. It's hard to be, but let's be realistic. If Arsenal don't secure Champions League and get 4th this year, I predicted we would get Champions League before the start of the season. I still think we will do it, don't forget, we have 2 ways to secure Champions League. We either finish in the top 4, okay, or we win the Europa League. Let's not forget the last couple of years in Europa League, Arsenal being close. We got to the semi-final.
You lost to Olympiacos.
We got to the semi-final and we lost to Atletico Madrid. We was unlucky.
Yeah.
And then we lost in the final comprehensively to Chelsea.
Yeah.
I'm
It was
convinced.
close, actually, wasn't it?
I'm convinced that we will, and you can quote me on it at the end of the season. I'm happy to come on again. I'm convinced that we will finish in the top 4 and we will secure Champions League. We haven't been in there for a long, long time now. And Shay will agree with me. Thursday nights, we don't like them. We're used to Champions League football. I don't know about Leeds, though, because you haven't been in there for a while, have you?
I'd rather not be in the Europa League, to be honest. I just think it's a waste of a competition.
No one knows you anyway. Nobody knows you in Europe anyway.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a good segue because we're going to talk about this coming week's games. The first one, we've got to talk about the big game of the weekend for this show particularly. Leeds United versus Woolwich FC on Sunday. I mean, I don't need to tell you how much of a big game this is to me. I'm going to let the 2 clowns go first. In fact, no, hang on. I'm going to go to James first because he's the only neutral on the show. So he's going to have a leveled analysis of the game. James, what do you think? How do you see the game going?
This game is, like I said, it's one that I really struggle to call because Leeds have gone and conceded 8 goals in the last 2 games. But barring the first, let's say, 5 minutes or so against the Leicester game, didn't think they were bad for the rest of it. Then the Crystal Palace game, I thought first half, yes, they went into that first half down 3-1, but I actually thought it was quite an even half. Second half was, I think Crystal Palace deserved the win, but it still makes me think that Leeds aren't playing that well, but then Leeds aren't playing too badly, but they're leaking goals and they're not clearly scoring enough. And then Arsenal on the flip side has just been so inconsistent, it's just hard to predict. But with Leeds, I feel, and Arsenal have scored a few goals, I think, like this season, playing out from the back. And Arsenal have done it quite nicely. I remember, I think they scored 1 goal against Fulham, first game of the season. It was a really nice move up the pitch. If you can do that to Leeds with their high press, you're so open then for a counter. And with a player like Aubameyang with the ball over the top, pace-wise, you're not catching him. And I don't really have a very fast defence at Leeds either. There's no defender really that sticks out to me that could keep up, put it this way, with a player like Aubameyang. So it would be interesting to see as well the formations that I think both of you go with, because we'll be able to try and be a bit more defensive and shore things up at the back. And because of that, you lose a bit of your attacking impetus. And then vice versa, will Arsenal will think to themselves, we're not doing enough going forward. So will they revert away from their 5 at the back and go to a classic 4, and then maybe stick Aubameyang up down the middle again, just because Lacazette clearly hasn't been doing it. And to be honest, I'll be surprised if Willian starts again. But you guys will be able to tell me. I don't know what the situation is with Martinelli, but he's one player that caught my eye whenever he played last year, and I'd happily like to see more of him because I thought he was a real talent. So if I had to put a prediction on the scoreline, I have a funny feeling. I think I said it yesterday. I think Arsenal might just nick it 2-1. I don't, like I said, there's not really much to go on with that one, but it's just a feeling I have.
It's an interesting point you made there, because I think what you said is the key of it. I've always said with Leeds, you know how they're going to play. It's how you deal with it. If Arsenal can do what you say and beat the high press, they'll have a lot of joy. However, if they can't, they'll have a nightmare. It's as simple as that. And it's the key crux of Leeds games, because if you can beat the high press, there's a lot of space in behind. But if you can't, you're losing the ball in and around your 18-yard box, and there's just danger everywhere. Shay, I'm going to go to you. What are your thoughts on this game?
This game for me is important because we need to bounce back after the Aston Villa game. As simple as that. We need to keep up with the pack ahead of us. Chelsea had a good result up at Turf Moor a few days ago. United had a very good result at Goodison Park on Merseyside. So it's important for us to win, to keep chasing these guys. In terms of the game itself, I mean, you guys are nobodies to me. As far as I know, you guys are on par with Fulham and those kind of teams. So I should expect us to beat you bums. I think it'll be a tough game because we always make teams like you guys look good. Rubbish no-name teams. So I think it'll be a tough game.
But it doesn't
But
mean anything to him, does it? Doesn't mean anything
I
to
do
him.
expect us to nick it at the end. That's what I do expect. I expect us to go late in the game and nick it right at the end, basically. So that's what I think will happen. For you, it's a big game because Leeds fans have something to look forward to. You guys don't win anything. You don't. Leeds are a small club. So, but for us, for me, it's just another game that we need to win. The big one is against Tottenham in a couple of weeks and Chelsea. Those are the big games. You guys are nobodies, but I believe we'll take you late into the game and beat you 2-1.
Shay, I can't really. I find it hard to believe you when you're shaking so much. Your prawns are falling out your sandwiches. I don't believe you because you know if you lose this game, what's going to happen. So I don't buy that you don't care because you're nervous, and I know you are. And I think Chris, I'm going to go to you next. I think Chris is man enough to accept that he is worried about this game because he knows what the consequences are if they do lose it. Isn't that right, Chris?
Yeah, I'm probably not as optimistic as Shay in thinking this is going to be a convincing away win for Arsenal. Back at Ellen Road, it's the first time these two sides have met in the Premier League since actually we won the Invincibles, Kieran. I don't know whether you know that. We won 5-0 at Highbury and 4-1 at Ellen Road. 9 goals in 2 games. So
yeah, mate. I remember you were 11, so you celebrate. For what I remember, you celebrated with Capri Sun, so it doesn't really matter anymore.
Probably, I'll be giving you a ham roll on Sunday after the game because you're going to be the biggest ham roll out there after we've.
I thought I won that after last night, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, my prediction for this game. I think it is going to be a tight game. I don't know the injury situations about Leeds, but Arsenal are missing a few players. Not saying that's going to contribute to the result. I'm hearing Thomas Partey's fit, so if he's fit, he'll sit in front of the defence. I think Arsenal are going to have too much going forward for Leeds, unfortunately for you, Kieran. If Aubameyang plays on the left, he plays as a striker, he will do well. However, I think this could be a bad day at the office for Leeds, and I'm predicting a tight game. Bielsa will try and ruffle Arteta's feathers, but the young apprentice from Pep Guardiola will have too much for Leeds and Bielsa, and it will be a 2-1 win. So get your tissues ready, mate.
Well, boys, strap yourself in for this. When we got promoted, there's 2 fixtures I looked out for. The Man U one, for obvious reasons, and this one, the Arsenal game, because as a Leeds fan growing up in Luton, I'm surrounded by these clowns. I've had to listen to 16 years of their fucking rubbish about how we're down in League One and the Championship and we're not on their level and all this nonsense. So for me, it's a massive game because I'm relishing the chance to shut them up. I really am. And for me, if Leeds win this game on Sunday, it's a victory for football against a tourist club, a corporate club, right, versus a real club. It's a victory for a real club. I think it's a victory for the 55 Arsenal employees made redundant, so you can sign players like Willian, who's been a flop. I can't wait. And you all know the consequences. I think if we win this game, it will be the most embarrassing result in Arsenal's history because I will make it the most embarrassing result in Arsenal's history. I will talk about it so much, they might have to bring out an 8th day of the week so I can talk about it some more. You ain't ever hearing the end of it, and you know you're not. In terms of the game itself, it's a very interesting one. If I get my tactical hat on, it's a very interesting one. Bielsa, I think, will tweak it slightly because we can't concede goals like we have been. But I think Arteta will make an error in this match. I can see he's under a lot of pressure. I think he will bow to public pressure and play 4 at the back to try and be more attacking. And I think that will play into Bielsa's hands. I think that will work better for Leeds. I think, he'll go 4 at the back. There'll be more space there. And I think Bielsa will teach Arteta a very painful lesson on Sunday. I think Leeds are going to nick it 2-1. I think Bamford's going to score. Shay's going to cry. I'm going to laugh. And Arteta's career is going to start to die. That is what's going to happen this Sunday. It's Judgment Day. And I can't fucking wait for it. I'm buzzing for that game. But there are other games this weekend we need to talk about. 2 really big ones, really, in the title race this early on. Spurs v City. A very interesting game. Just my thoughts on it. Both teams, I think, have been quite inconsistent this season. City have not looked like the force they have been over the last couple of years. I know they've got Diaz and Laporte now, but like I said, they're still learning to play together. They have the basis of a solid partnership, but they're going to take a while, I think, to gel. Spurs are Spursy. You know, they've been great one week, poor the next. We all remember that game against West Ham. They're liable to blow Leeds. I think it's going to be a very, very tough game. I do think Spurs will nick it, if I'm honest. I think that front three of Son, Bale and Kane will do the job against the City side that can be got at. So I'm going to say 3-1 to Spurs. But yeah, City haven't looked the same. And I mentioned it yesterday on Take One. David Silva's exit for City, I think, has been glossed over a lot. Hasn't been made a bigger deal as I think it is, because I think you can tell they're missing him. They really are. There's no one in that midfield. I mean, obviously they've got De Bruyne, but he's not got his mate beside him. And I think a lot of the pressure is on him now. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's a tough one to call just because of how, like you say, the Spurs pull a Spursy moment every now and then, and City just haven't looked like the team that we've kind of seen over the past couple of years. Spurs' defense is what does it for me. Is I don't really have much faith in that. They look like they can get got at. I've never been a fan of Eric Dyer in centre back. Don't see it. But hey, if Mourinho is a top class manager, if he believes in him, then fair enough. But I personally just don't see it. You've got aging centre backs like Alderweireld in the team, but I don't think he starts these days, does he? I think it's more Sanchez and Dyer as the pairing. But then going forward, like we're saying, that attack can trouble anyone, even if it isn't Bale, if he's maybe injured or on the bench to start with. You've got Bergwijn, you've got Moura, and Bale can come off the bench. I mean, how much of a frightening prospect is that as well? But then City, I think defensively, the Laporte-Diaz partnership is starting to get a bit of traction to it, and they're starting to build up a bit of a partnership. And you've got good pace on either wing with Walker and Cancelo to, I suppose, match the pace of someone Bale or Moura or Bergwijn. But saying that, I mean, you might know my thoughts on Walker. Defensively, liability. The guy's 29, 30 years old. I don't think the guy still knows how to defend personally. He gets back because he's so quick and he can sort of get in the way of things. But I think positionally wise, at times, he's just all over the place. Saying that, I think getting Gabriel Jesus back into the team for City's huge. They've got an actual recognised striker. But I suppose, because you did mention it yesterday, the David Silva thing was something that I hadn't even thought about. And mostly, I think, because of De Bruyne, we just kind of forget about all the attention's on him, and it's really glossed over it. And I said it yesterday, I think David Silva might possibly have been the best player ever in the Premier League, just because I don't think we've seen another player like him. And he always used to keep the ball effortlessly. He'd find pockets of space effortlessly. He'd have that no-look pass that no one else could see on the pitch, but he knew exactly where to do it. And he fitted that Guardiola mold of they don't score, let's say, like I said, your screamers constantly. They've always been one of those teams that are very quick little passes in and around the box and then a tap in at the end. And I think without him, they're kind of missing a lot of those passes in and around the box. And that's maybe why the goals have dried up a little bit. But it remains to be seen. I think City have got a bit more about them at the moment in their past few games. So I'm going to go with a 3-1 City win.
Yeah, mate. I mean, the point about David Silva is a really good one because he's gone to Real Sociedad. I don't know if you've seen him in La Liga, but he is doing bits for them. He's raced them up the league. He's been quality. And I think it's a massive, massive loss. I think as well when Delph went, he wasn't necessarily the greatest player, but I think he's a leader in that dressing room. And with him and company gone, I do think there's holes in that City team. And I think that's why they're not the force they once were. Shay, what are your thoughts on this game?
It's a very important game. On one end, you've got Pep Guardiola City, who signed a brand new 2-year deal.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
so
today.
Very, very big news for Man City. I think keeping hold of Pep is what they need to do to help to close the gap with Liverpool, basically. And then you've got Tottenham, a.k.a. the No Trophy Boys. No cut for 12 years. But according to Colt, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, even though they've got no trophy. That's another story. Very important game. It's a bit of a weird one because when I look at City, City are sort of not in transition, but they've had company go, they've had Silva go, and Sergio Aguero will go in the next couple of years. So their spine is changing. Like how the spine changed at Chelsea when Lampard, Terry, Drogba went. Big game. I think it will be a draw between the two sides. I think Harry Kane will be looking at City's defence and have their little wink and a smile. But City also have the best midfielder in the world, KDB. So I think it will be a solid 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. Yeah, no, definitely I can see that happening. Chris, what do you think of this game? It's a tough one to call.
Yeah, really tough game. Tottenham are in good form. City have obviously started inconsistently, but they've started to get back to winning ways. I think Tottenham are going to have too much firepower up front for City. I know City, since Diaz has signed from Benfica, he's more of a consistent partner for Laporte. That will help City, but I think City struggle to go forwards. I know this season Aguero's been out injured for the majority of the season. That's an ongoing injury from last season. They've not really had a recognised striker. Ferran Torres has played there at times and has done well since he's come in. I just think with the way that Harry Kane and Son are playing at the minute, their assist to goal ratio, I think, is the second in Premier League history. They're only behind Didier Drogba and Frank Lampard now. I think this will be a high-scoring game. I think both sides will score, but I'm going to go with Spurs on this one, unfortunately, and I think they will win comfortably 3-1.
That pains you to say as a Gooner, doesn't it?
It does pain me to say. Our biggest rivals, but like I said, we've got bigger fish to fry with Leeds this weekend.
Leeds is a big fish. I've made it a big fish. We're going to move on to another really interesting game. Liverpool v Leicester. Now, normally this would be a game where Leicester will give everyone, all the big boys, a challenge. I think they're a very good team, but you'd expect Liverpool to win this. But I've just got a list here of the players out for Liverpool. Trent is out. Robertson is looking like he's going to be out. Van Dijk's out. Gomez is out. Fabinho's out. Salah's has been tested positive for corona again, so he's out. Another one of their young boys, Henderson as well. Yeah, Henderson, I think, is going to be out. Another one of their young defenders, I can't remember his name. I think he's going to be out as well. So essentially, they're going to be playing the B team against a very dangerous Leicester side. Shay, what do you think of this game? What do you think is going to happen?
This game will be tighter than what I thought it would be if you'd asked me at the start of the season. I think if Liverpool win the Premier League this year, this will be Jurgen Klopp's biggest achievement in football. And people will say, hold on, he won the Champions League. He broke the 30-year duck. Liverpool are going through what every team go through. Injuries. And they're having big injuries at the same time. Arguably, the most talented player for me, Virgil van Dijk, in terms of a talented importance, is injured. Yeah, he's out. They've got no defenders. Their challenge now is, can the other players step up in his absence? Joe Gomez, these other guys, step up now. Matip, step up. So, I think it'll be a very, very tight game. But I think they'll win it 1-0 against Leicester. But Liverpool's injuries will show. We will know over the next couple of months or so how good they really are now. So, 1-0 Liverpool for me.
Definitely, it's a big, big test for Klopp and Liverpool. They've been, I think, quite lucky with injuries the last couple of seasons, really, realistically. And this is a massive, massive test for them. James, how do you see it going?
A bit like you sort of alluded to at the start. You'd kind of have expected Liverpool to win this game if both teams were fully fit, even though Leicester will give everyone a game. But now with all the injuries they've got, particularly with their defence, and Jamie Vardy's been, on pretty good form this season, it's an exciting prospect for a neutral, especially as a United fan, because I'm looking forward to hopefully Jamie Vardy tearing them a new one. But I think it depends on him mostly. I think if Jamie Vardy has a good game, then Leicester win. I think he doesn't necessarily have to score, but if he can stretch that defence and create spaces for the others, that's where, the key could be for them. I mean, players like Tielemans obviously have got a goal in them. I think Castagne's been playing well for them. The Belgian left back, I think it is, that they bought to replace Chilwell. Fofana's been playing well, but I think he may have picked up an injury or got COVID or something like that, from what I've heard. And with Soyuncu out as well, that could actually be a bit of a centre-back issue that Leicester have. So I'm going to say 2-2 though, because I think even though that defence obviously is being hit to pieces, do you know what I mean? They're falling over like pins in a bowling alley at the moment. But you've got Jota, who I think has been a brilliant signing. It was very under the radar, even though it's £45 million. No one really knew it was happening. And I think that was a great signing because he's a good age as well. He's only like 23, 24. And you got him, Firmino, and you've still got Mane up front. The midfield, even though they might have lost Henderson and I suppose Fabinho, you've still got good midfielders in there. Do you know what I mean? You've got Shaqiri, who could play in there. You've still got Keita, Wijnaldum. There's enough talent in there. It's just whether or not the defence can hold out. And that's why I think they'll concede goals. But alternatively, I still think they've got enough going forward in that sort of front three, at least, that they can sort of let them loose. So I'm going to go 2-2.
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think you've alluded to it already. Liverpool have got massive. It's an injury crisis. Let's not make any mistake about it. Van Dijk's out for the rest of the season. Joe Gomez is out until the new year. Trent's out for 4 weeks. Robertson's picked up an injury. I don't think he'll be playing. Fabinho's not playing. Oxlade-Chamberlain, Salah's contracted coronavirus. I just think this is the type of game where Brendan Rodgers, Leicester, and Vardy and co will be licking their lips. I think Leicester are going to win this game comfortably. And I'm actually going to go for a 4-1 victory for Leicester. I know.
4-1, you know.
Yeah, I just think that they've got the weapons. Like I said, Vardy is going to get in behind. He's going to penetrate them consistently. They are not going to know what day of the week it is. Leicester are just going to pounce on them like a lion on a gazelle. And Liverpool just not going to know what day of the week it is. Secondly to that as well, Liverpool, considering how defensively sound they were last year, they've got the second worst defensive record this season. They've conceded 16. Only Leeds United, who've conceded 17, have got a worse record. So, yeah, Leeds are the worst in the Premier League at the minute. We're not going to speak about that. But I think Leicester will win 4-1. I think Jamie Vardy will get a couple of goals.
We love to see that result. I'm looking forward to that. I hope that one comes true.
But I think with this game, what everyone needs to remember is Liverpool are champions for a reason. Last season in particular, I remember James getting really pissed off because they're winning games without really playing particularly well. But that's the mark of champions, and I think they'll get a result. They just always seem to get a result. I don't think they'll win the game, but I don't think they'll lose it either. I'm going to agree with James. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw because despite all the problems Liverpool have got at the minute, Mane will be playing, Jota will be playing, and they are both in red hot form, I think. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. The last game we're going to cover, nothing game really. Two poor sides. West Brom versus Man U. Solskjaer's done his Houdini, had a couple of good results. But it's like we say, he's on a 0-hours contract now. He's got no job security. Could be out the door at any moment. Yeah, Primark business, no job security. If he gets a bad result here, he could be gone. Just quickly, I think Brom also have been shocking. They haven't won a game yet this season. I think for me, they're going down unless they turn it around massively. So this is a game Man U should win comfortably. But ironically, as James will know, the games they should win comfortably, they don't win comfortably. So I actually think this is going to be a 1-1. I think Brom are going to get a point, and we're going to see James's water bottle flying all the way to Leeds after this game is done. James, what do you think?
So I said it yesterday, but maybe you've actually put a bit of doubt in my head because it is, like you're saying, the games that we should typically be winning, so to speak. I never take any game lightly, but obviously, as big a club as we are, when we're playing these so-called smaller teams, you expect the results, and those are the ones we just haven't been doing well in at all this season. I mean, the big games against PSG, Leipzig, those are the ones that we've just suddenly come alive and actually done really well in. And it's just, I mean, the poor games against, even though we beat Brighton, do you know what I mean? That was an awful game. We should have lost that, I think, by at least like 3 goals. Crystal Palace, opening game of the season, but, still lost that one embarrassingly. Played Arsenal, poor team, lost against them as well. Not to say Arsenal are, but, they're not playing well at the moment. And we still, I feel, could have put the pressure on them and we just didn't in that game. But saying that, West Brom look all at sea for me in the Premier League at the moment. They don't look like they've got enough quality in there. I just can't see them keeping out our attackers. Saying that, I think Marcus Rashford is injured though, and that will be a big loss for us. But I still think when you look at the players that we've got in terms of Bruno, Martial, Pogba, Greenwood,
you should win.
I think it should be quite comfortable. I was going to say 2 or 3-0, but I'll be optimistic and say 3-0.
An optimistic United fan. You just love to see them crash, don't you? Shay, what are your thoughts on this relegation 6-pointer?
West Brom are one of the teams that I just making up numbers. They've been awful. 0 wins. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he must be a black cat in his old life because this guy, every time he needs a result, he keeps getting the result. These guys shouldn't trouble Solskjaer. I think United will beat West Brom. West Brom are a bunch of bums from the West Midlands. I hope they pick up wins soon, but I believe that it will be a 4-0 Man United win. 4-0. West Brom won't even touch him. So, yeah, that's my prediction. And Marcus Rashford will score.
It's interesting, you say that, because Solskjaer's basically doing as a manager what he did as a player, as in He's getting to the 90th minute. It's looking all over, and then he comes up with a goal. That's what he's doing. It looks like his job's done, and then he goes and beats PSG and beats Leipzig, and he is really living up to that super sub moniker, I think, as a manager as well. Chris, what do you think of this game?
This is an interesting game. James must be on the edge of his seat for this game because he understands and realises that if United lose, they'll be looking for another manager. I don't think Sir Alex Ferguson's available, James, unfortunately, so maybe Pochettino might be waiting in the wings. Look, Man United have struggled this season. We all know that. I think everyone can see there's issues behind the scenes. Ed Woodward needs to pull his finger out and sort out the debacle. Man United haven't won a game at home this season, which James will know. They've played 4, they've lost 3, they've drawn 1. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the type of game where, despite West Brom not winning the game in 8, they go and win. I'm not saying they are going to win, but things happen in football. That's why we love it so much. I actually think United will just about nick this game. I think it'll be 2-1, but I think they will make it difficult for United. They've got nothing to prove going away to the Theatre of Dreams. It will be the Theatre of Dreams still, but yeah, I think United are going to win just 2-1. But if not, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be getting his P45 in the post, and Pochettino will be ready to take the reins.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Ole, if he doesn't win, he will be back to teaching PE. And you're right, it is probably a theatre of dreams, but it's a theatre of dreams for every visiting team at the minute, as James probably knows. But we're going to wrap up, guys. We will be back next week talking about all these games. We will be celebrating a big Leeds United victory. I will be drinking the tears of Arsenal fans worldwide. It will be champagne for my soul. Shay, I'm not sure if he'll be here next week, because if Leeds do win, I won't see him. He will turn into John Cena. Chris, happy 30th birthday for next year, because I know I won't hear from you either. But yeah, guys, I'm going to sign off. I'm Colt K, Leeds fan.
James Rocker, United fan.
Hey, it's the one and only. You can't clone me. Alive, breathing the kicking in the flesh. Booyaka. Shay, the Arsenal fan.
And I'm Chris. Thanks to the rest of the panel, Kieran, James and Shay for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm a massive fan of the show, and I hope to be on again in the near future.
You're welcome back.
Pleasure, mate.
It was my idea to bring him on. It wasn't Colt's idea. I brought Chris on, so I'm absolutely honoured to have him on. He's welcome back anytime.
Much appreciated, my fellow Arsenal fans.
All right, cheers, boys.
Cheers, guys.